All right. Okay, thanks. All right, so we're going to just recap again. We're going to continue with the Shema and the Brachot, part 3. So the Shema, as we already learned, contains the following principles of Jewish faith. That Hashem exists, that there's no other God besides Hashem. Hashem is eternal. Hashem is all-powerful. Hashem is the creator and the master of all that exists. Hashem watches over the Jewish people with divine providence. And finally, the last thing, when we say the Shema, we're always remembering that ultimately he will be acknowledged by all mankind. When we say the Shema, we are reminded, because of the uppercase Ayin and Dalet, that we are the aid, the witness to Hashem's oneness. And when we say the Baruch Shem Kavod quietly, we also show our belief in the Geula, that the whole world will soon know that Hashem is omnipotent. Also, even though we don't say Hashem's name when we say the Shema, the actual verse of the Shema, we say Adonai, which is my God. The Shem Havaya, which is the Yud Kei Vav Kei name, stands for, in Hebrew, the translation is, it stands for he was, he is, and he will be. And therefore it makes Hashem the master of existence. And that name is always related to the fact that he will always exist. Again, when we say Echad, besides the way we pronounce the words and focus on each letter, we should also consider that each letter has the gematria. The Aleph has the gematria of 1, so that reminds us Hashem is 1 over the entire universe. The Chet has the gematria of 8, and that reminds us that Hashem is 1 over the 7 heavens and the earth. And the Dalet, which has the gematria of 4, reminds us that Hashem is 1 over all the 4 directions of the world. So in other words, Hashem is everywhere. The Baruch Shem Kavod is really translated more into the fact that we are requesting that the revelation of the glory of Hashem's kingdom will be known to everybody and increased forever, rather than the literal translation that are in most Siddurim. So now today we're going to continue discussing and reading the individual paragraphs. So I'm going to do this a little differently than I usually do, because I want to try to get through all the 3 paragraphs, because we're getting close to Rosh Hashanah, and I want to be able to start on the Rosh Hashanah prayers soon. So, the Chachamim say that you should take just as much care when you're reading or saying the words of the remaining 3 paragraphs as you did with the Shema. You should concentrate on the meaning of every word, and you should make it gain as just important to understand it. So therefore, you can say it in English if you don't understand the Hebrew. When you read the paragraphs, you should think of it as a letter that you're reading for the first time from Hashem, because remember, it's written in the Torah. All 3 of these paragraphs come straight directly out the Torah. And you should think of it that Hashem is sending this to you, and you should think of it with reverence and awe, and pay attention as he's giving you each instruction, because as you'll see when we go over it, each of them is an instruction. The Rambam in his Hilchot Kriyat Shema says that when we're saying the words, you should make sure to pause so that one word doesn't run into the next. Okay, so that's particularly important in the Hebrew, because a lot of words will end with the same letter and then literally start with the same letter, so the words often run into the next if you don't say them clearly. So there shouldn't be, if you're saying it in another language other than Hebrew, then you must be careful to follow the grammatical rules of that language. You shouldn't have any slurring. You shouldn't make any contractions or abbreviations. and focus on each of the words or phrases, because sometimes if you the word in Hebrew, a single word in Hebrew, can be translated into a whole phrase in English, and therefore you should consider those. A lot of the words and meanings and nuances can be lost in translation, as you'll see when we discuss some of the paragraphs below. I'm also now going to, just before I go into each paragraph, I'm going to encourage those of you who are not so good with Hebrew to maybe consider taking the courses that are going to be offered by the National Jewish Outreach Program. They were sent out yesterday by the shul. If you scroll a little further down from the top class where like mine is and all the others, if you scroll down, you'll see there are 2 classes, one on introductory Hebrew that begin this week, and another one that is going to be on more intermediate people, for people who can already read, to help you with the tunes and the melodies of some of the songs for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. So if you're interested in that and you're not sure what I'm talking about, I can always forward you again the email if you text me or ask me. So if you look at the V'ahavta, oh my gosh, I've got a whole gap here in my notes. Anyway, whatever. If you look at the V'ahavta Hashem Elokecha, you shall see, you shall love Hashem your God. That's the first paragraph. Okay, it's on page 92 in the art scroll, and it is in 99 in the Quran. Okay, if you're using that one. So if you look, all right. So if you look at it again, you'll see that the first paragraph, it's very easy to see because they are separated clearly. The first paragraph, which we call the V'ahavta, the loving part of the loving Hashem, comes also from the same verse as the Shema. It literally follows the Shema, which was chapter 6, verse 4, and now we're reading chapter 6, verses 5 to 9, also from the parasha 2 weeks ago. And they focus on the commandment to love Hashem. So it says there, and you shall love the Lord your God with all your hearts, with all your soul, and with all your resources. In other words, that means that you're required to love your Hashem with your heart, your emotions, and your desires. Your soul means you're prepared that even to sacrifice your life. And your resources means that you're prepared to give your wealth towards showing how much you love Hashem. So further on, we also carry on by if you carry on the rest of the words, it says, let these matters that I command you today be upon your heart. So that sentence, let that matter that I command you today be upon your heart, that's the sentence that I'm translating. Basically, when you say that, you're pledging allegiance to Hashem, that you will try as much as possible to follow his commandments, and that you will show your love by following his commandments. Because if you believe someone is there, then you love them, and then if you love them, you will follow their words that they have told you. So furthermore, if you look at the words, you'll see it says, let these matters that I command you today. Okay, for those of you that are looking in the RCA, I'm looking at the third line in English. I'm just doing it with me reading it and pointing out the key words. Today, the word today is used because, again, we always feel that Hashem is giving us the commandments afresh on every new day. We're not conscious that they are something that was given in the past. Like, we don't think it was given 2,000 years at Mount Sinai, and that's it. We feel like every single morning when we wake up that today these commandments are given to us again today, and that it's our duty again today to perform mitzvot and to do Gemulut Chasadim, to do good deeds. The second thing is also about being on your heart. Again, it's a love relationship that should infuse all our actions and not fear. Again, Rav Sachs says that we shouldn't do any of these actions from fear. We should keep the commandments because we love Hashem and because we believe in Him, and that's the reason we should do them. Straight after the words, and you shall, these matters that I command you today shall be upon your heart, we go straight into teach them thoroughly to your children. So again, the reason that it follows straight away is because if you have the commandments on your heart and you love them and you do them because of love, this will automatically actually educate your children. It will automatically infuse into the relationship with your children. Your children will see by example what you do. Similarly, it carries on. You should do this while you speak of them. Speaking of them means when you're with your friends or other family members. So again, when you do that or you study with people, again, that information will again infuse into others and show the love that you have, and thereby make other people aware of it. Also, it carries on then that you shall bind them as a sign upon your arm. So again, that is interpreted as the reason for wearing tefillin on the arm. And the reason the tefillin are on the arm, it's always on the left arm because that's near your heart. No matter whether you're left or right-handed, you still do that. And the second one is, and let them be tefillin between your eyes. Okay, so again, we'll talk about that in a minute. That word, actually, the Hebrew word is, if you look at it, I'm looking at the very last word on the second from bottom line of the Hebrew. It says v'hayu totafot. It doesn't say v'yahayu tefillin. The English translation is and let them be tefillin. V'hayu is, the word v'hayu is and let them be. That is one word that, as I said, becomes a phrase in English. But letotafot has been translated as tefillin. Letotafot doesn't actually mean tefillin. And between your eyes is beinei necha. So if you actually look again, as I said, at the Hebrew, the translation in English, that's why we need to go through some of the words, is because when you say the Shema and you are going to read it in English, then you need to understand that the tefillin is not necessarily referring to that. And I will discuss that in a minute. Okay, and then it ends with, and you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and your gates. And again, if you bring the love into your house by putting it on your mezuzot to remind you that when a lot of people, when they come in and out the house, they kiss the mezuzot because they think of Hashem. When you see it in your house, you think of Hashem. Again, it's all to do with the concept of bringing the love and making the love visible in our homes and in all different places that function. Rabbi Monk says that if you look at those last verses, all of those things are basically concrete reminders for us all the time that we have our love for Hashem and that we should love Hashem. Furthermore, Rav Schwartz says that also when you say this, you can obviously only really love Hashem if you've already accepted that Hashem exists. So therefore, when we first said the actual verse, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, we've announced that we accept Hashem exists. And now we can go straight into this paragraph and talk about how we love Hashem because we've announced that He lives. Another important thing that Rabbi Travis also brings up, when you focus on that other verse, the Vishinantam Levanecha, when you teach them to your children, again, lost a little bit in translation. When it says Vishinantam Levanecha, it means Vishinantam is a plural. That means you should teach them to your children. Okay, now we all know that maybe some people don't have children, or some people's children already are older and grown, so maybe they don't really have that responsibility anymore to teach the children. So the important thing is that Reb Trevor says is that this is an indication to us that it's not only important to be teaching our children, but it's important to be teaching children in general, and therefore to be involved in ensuring that you can help Torah learning as a child, for a child. So that's why giving donations to schools or to shuls that have programs and youth programs, or to camps, and there's a lot of places out there, Jewish organizations that ask for these things. Simple ones like NCSY, Camp Simcha, schools of your children or grandchildren or great-grandchildren. All of these things are things you should consider to give donations, because thereby, even though you have fulfilled already your obligation of helping your children learn, you are still involved in actually helping other children learn in the Torah. So now let's talk about this word, the totafot, the last word. Again, that, as I said, when it translates, is a little lost in translation. If you look at the word totafot, in the Talmud, in the Gemara, it says that the word, it means in or to, but if you look at the first two letters, the tota, those two letters, it's actually a translation from a Caspian language that actually means two. Okay, and the second word letters, fot, which is the pei and the tet, they are they actually are also from an African language, which also means two. So when they talked about letotafot, they're actually talking about 2 plus 2, which means 4. And what they're talking about actually is 4 different verses from the Torah that are actually placed inside the tefillin. Okay, so let me explain which are these 4 different parchments that are put inside the tefillin. The first is the Kadesh, which comes out of Exodus 13:1. It's actually the parsha that we read on the first day of Chol HaMoed Pesach, and it's when basically Hashem speaks to Moses and tells them about the sanctification of every firstborn. So and he says that you have to remember the day you departed from Egypt. So the reason for that verse is to remember again the Yetziat Mitzrayim. And remember, we said that it's one of the things that we're commanded to do through the Shema. The next part of the second parchment contains the verse also from Exodus 13, but from 11, and it says again, "And it shall come to pass when Hashem shall bring you to the land of Canaan, that way he swore to your forefathers." So again, the second verse is referring to not only the bringing us out of Egypt, but also bringing us to the new land, to Israel, the way he promised us. And you'll see that as we go through the discussions of the other chapters, the promise is always again of bringing us again there for the final time, when it will be the final redemption, and then we will no longer have to worry about leaving Israel. The third parchment that's in the tefillin is the Shema itself, the one that I've just read for you, that paragraph Haftzah until all the way up to Visharecha. And the fourth paragraph is what we're going to discuss after this. It is the second actual paragraph of the Shema, which is Vahaya im Shamoah, which translates, "And it will come to pass that if you continually hearken to my commandments." So that is going to be the fourth one that is included. So again, by putting them over there inside the tefillin, they are a reminder of the fact of the same things that we've said that all the time is the message of the Shema. I actually went online to look yesterday to see if it's actually true that Rashi's daughters did put on tefillin. And actually, it is not true. There is no evidence at all that anyone can find. I researched lots of articles and I read lots of articles. There's no proven evidence. The only answer they can give is a maybe. The only definite person that they know for sure did put on tefillin was actually Michal, who was King David's wife and King Shaul's daughter. And she apparently did put on tefillin for sure. And she actually never ever was blessed with children. So she never really had the issue of time constraints because that's the main reason for not doing tefillin, is because it's a time mitzvah. You have to do it in the morning in Shacharit. And so she never had those constraints. And on top of it, she was known as being more spiritually high level because, first of all, being a princess and eventually a queen and all those things. So she's the only one who's known of that. There also apparently were some women in the 11th and 12th century that did wear tefillin and in Orthodox situations. And apparently Rav Moshe Feinstein said that actually there is nothing really wrong with women wearing tefillin or tzitzis or any of those things, except that if they do accept a mitzvah onto themselves, then it's an extra responsibility to make sure that you do it all the time. And if you can't do it, then it doesn't really work. It has to be something that you'll do all the time. So just so you know that, I did actually also read an interesting reference that said that if you actually think of why women don't really need to have this constant reminder all the time, is because most of the time the woman was involved in going to the mikveh, and when she went to the mikveh, she would submerge herself in the waters of the mikveh, and the waters of the mikveh would remind her and surround her with all these ideas of Hashem and the love of Hashem and things like that. So she didn't really need to wear the tefillin every day, plus as well her other chores of raising the children and other things like that. They also said very clearly that under no circumstances are we to compare things that men do to things that women do and feel in a feministic way that we are not allowed to do these things because of the fact that men are higher or lower, or we are higher or lower, anything like that. It's just different. And once you accept that, you realize that Hashem made us different, and we are different, and we have different experiences, and there are things men can't do that we can, and that's just the way it is. So if we carry on, it says in the second paragraph, V'haya im shamoa, and it will come to pass that if you continue hearken to my commandments that I command you today. So again, you'll see that it mentions the word today. And you'll see that the second paragraph focus on basically the practical observance of the mitzvot as a means of attaining oneness with Hashem. Unlike the first paragraph, this one specifies the duty to perform Hashem's commandments. Okay, the other one was just about loving Hashem and having a feeling for Hashem. And this also teaches us about reward and punishment. It teaches us, you'll see as we carry on reading, it will teach us about the rewards we'll get and also about the punishments we'll receive if we don't follow the commandments. The important other thing about this paragraph, it's if you look at the tense, again, lost a lot of the times in Hebrew. If you look even at the very first verse, it says, V'haya im shamoa tishma'u. Tishma'u is a plural, and in English it says, if you continually perform our commandments, but tishma'u actually means if you, plural, continually do my commandments. So again, it's talking to the Jewish nation as opposed to the first verse, which is actually talking to the individual. And the reason this is talking to the Jewish nation now is because now it's going to talk about our covenant that Hashem has with us and the Torah and the promises that he's made to our ancestors. Again, as I said, please be aware that I'm going to outline for you now which parts of this are actually in plural and which are in singular, because the translation again loses it in English. Okay, so if you look at the beginning of the line, when it says again, serve Hashem with all your heart, again, and with all your soul. So again, it means a similar thing to what it meant before, except again, it's saying levavachem and not levavecha, which again is your in plural, and nafshechem, your souls, again in plural. Okay, and then it says, V'natati matar atzachem, and again, I will give your land. Again, your land, talking obviously of our land, Israel, Eretz Israel. And I will give you Yoreh u'malkosh. Okay, so, sorry, matar, Yoreh u'malkosh. So matar is actually giving us rain, and it's talking about giving us rain early. Again, early meaning in the fall, early fall. As you know, in Sukkot is when we start saying the prayer for rain. So we're talking before Sukkot and before we actually say the prayer for rain, that Hashem will actually give it to us even before we ask for the rain. And similarly, he will, Malkosh, he will give it to us in the spring, again, which is, spring is Pesach. And again, after we've already stopped saying the prayer, he will actually give it to us as well. Rashi explains, again, that we're not really thinking about only agricultural benefits, okay? In this case, the rain that we're talking about is not only physical water and rain, but rather Hashem is saying to us, if you fulfill your obligations, then I will rain down on you my obligations. I will actually fulfill my obligations to you. So it's an interesting concept to think of rain not only as the agricultural rain, but also as the rain of good tidings and things from Hashem. If you also look at the Vesafta de Ganecha. Now, if you start looking over here, when it starts with the Venatati Eser, sorry, where am I? Vesafta de Ganecha. It changes now back into the singular. So v'asavta daganecha v'tiroshcha v'yitzarecha, which, if that's the one where it says, and that you may gather your grain, your wine, and your oil. So that again has now changed back into singular. So again, the reason it's changed into singular is for two reasons. The first reason is because not everybody is a farmer and is involved in agriculture. So not everybody is going to be affected by being able to gather grain and your wine and oil. Not everybody is involved in those industries. But again, Rav Schwab says that you should think of this, that everyone is actually dependent on the successful agriculture for your food and your sustenance. So again, if Hashem is saying that he will allow you as an individual, it means that again, you as a person will be able to have your food and your sustenance. Furthermore, Rav Schwab says that in the Talmud in Brachot 35b, they actually discuss this word, and the word I'm talking about is the, let me just get it in Hebrew first. So I'm going between the Hebrew and the English here, so I get lost. The Natzat, no, wait, hang on. Where was I in Hebrew? Natzaritzum Yorokeo Malkosh Vesafta Zaganecha. Vesartem, sorry, Vesartem. Vesartem, which again is telling us about providing grass for the cattle and the fields, doesn't again mean that we are providing grass for the cattle in the field. Obviously, that is clearly what is happening for a person who has a farm. But he says that it means that you have to actually provide an income for yourself and a livelihood for yourself. And people that say that you can just study Torah and not have an income and not have a livelihood are going against the grain of what this verse is actually saying. If you carry on also then, and you see it says after that verse about the cows, it says, and the grass in the field of your cows, and you will eat and you will be satisfied. So it is from that verse that Rosh Hashanah says that we see that you need to feed your pets and your animals before you actually sit down and eat for yourself. Because it says it first shall satisfy the cows and the grass, give the cows grass, and then you shall eat and be satisfied. So that's the verse where it's the custom, and not only custom, the mitzvah has arrived, that we actually have to sit down and feed our animals and our pets before we actually sit down to eat. If you carry on, it says, beware, okay, and beware. If you take that, it says hishamru. Hishamru can also be observed, and it means that the grammar again changes back to plural now. So just that middle section about the farm part is the part that was in singular, but still does have meaning even if you're not a farmer or in agriculture. But now the grammar changes back to plural, and the warning comes to all the nation. It says, lest your heart be seduced and you turn astray and serve gods of others and bow to them. So again, Rashi talks about this, and he says that after Hashem has talked about all the good things that he's going to give us, and he's going to give us for following the mitzvot, we're going to prosper, and we're going to maybe be wealthy, or we're going to be healthy, or we're going to have all these positive things in our lives. He said that people often, when they get to that stage, they become complacent. And therefore, when they're complacent, they actually become prone to temptation and prone to idolatry. Not necessarily idolatry meaning worshiping other gods, but not really taking Hashem for granted, that Hashem has given you these things. And also by making material things your God. Like a lot of people, it becomes more important what car you've got, what house you've got, what clothes you wear, instead of just understanding that those are the things that Hashem has given you. And then if you carry on, the next verse, it says, V'chara. Okay, V'chara af Hashem. Then the wrath of Hashem will blaze against you. Okay, so they're really using very strong words. The blaze is like to make you think of a fire. And basically, it follows now with the list of things of what's going to happen if you don't listen to Hashem, and you don't appreciate Hashem more than listen to Hashem. And as it says, one of the things that it says will happen, he will restrain the heavens so there will be no rain and no ground to yield produce. Okay. And also it says, and you will be swiftly banished from the goodly land which Hashem gives you. So again, you see that there won't be rain, there won't be produce, which means again our sustenance and our lives will be threatened. I mean, I guess similar to what's happening now with COVID. And second of all, we will lose our land. So as Rav Schwab said, that's a historic fact that actually did happen already. And it took less than 850 years of us living in Eretz Israel after we got there from Egypt. And even though it was supposed to be forever, we were supposed to be allowed to live in the land forever, it was not to be. But on the other hand, it actually was not permanent either. And we see that because if you look at the verse, the word, it says, and Hashem gives you. Okay, so the word, again, gives you, is basically telling you that Hashem is giving it back to us. It's not going to be taken away and then not given back to us. He will actually give it back to us, and he has given it back to us. And actually, as you already know, obviously we now have the state of Israel again, And Eretz Israel does again belong to the Jewish people, both legally because we've bought much of the land, and because for other reasons we have the possession of the land and we live in it, and we look after it and we take care of it, and we follow the mitzvot, and the land is actually filled with lots of Hashem's mitzvot. So, however, the other thing that Rosh Rav says, that the land again will never ever be taken away from us on a permanent basis, and that we have to believe about the fact that we will be keeping Eretz Israel, and that's what we have to believe, that eventually one day it will totally belong to us. I'll talk about in a minute about it being under our control, which comes up in another one of the verses. Okay, and then if you carry on reading, you will see that the next lot of words, place these words again upon your heart and upon your soul. So again, we're back to the first verse. Bind them for a sign upon your arm, and let them be, again, tefillin, but if you look in the Hebrew, it's totafot, between your eyes. Teach them to the children, discuss them while you sit in your home, while you work on the way, when you retire, when you arise, and write them on the doorposts of your house and your gates. Again, as I said, exactly the same words as the first paragraph, but again, if you look at the Hebrew, this time we're talking in plural. Okay, and the plural form is basically talking to us because it's telling us that in the first paragraph, it's talking about our responsibility. But in the second paragraph, it's actually talking about the custom that the Jewish people have to try and help other people to actually do mitzvot, to actually encourage other people to perform mitzvot, which comes from a verse that says in the Talmud, Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh Bazeh. It's in Brachot, no, not Brachot, in Shavuot 39a, which basically means Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh Bazeh, that the entire Jewish people are actually guarantors for one another. So in other words, it is our responsibility to actually care about other Jews doing mitzvot or being able to do mitzvot. And that's the reason why the Chabad is one of the biggest organizations that took up the mitzvah of going around to get people to put on tefillin, to get them to shake the lulav and etrog, to give out candles and candlesticks for people to light Shabbos candles and to light Hanukkah candles, okay? Because that's what they're taking that into their own, that the more people we can get to do that. Similarly, us as parents and grandparents can do similar things by, for example, buying tefillin for your grandson's bar mitzvah, or candlesticks for your granddaughter's bat mitzvah or wedding, depending on when your custom is for them to light candles. Or you could buy a mezuzah with the cloth for a friend who's moving into a new home to put on their doorpost. Or you can share your lulav and etrog. If you buy a lulav and etrog, you could ask a friend who doesn't want to pay I don't know how much it was this year, $49 or $39, I'm not sure, but who doesn't want to pay the money maybe for $5 to share your lulav and etrog with you. By giving you the money, they basically are purchasing it and therefore fulfilling the mitzvah and can use the lulav and etrog. In fact, the list is endless, as I've already said. Again, the limadatem is helping to give children Torah education. And I'm sure you can think of so many more ideas of how you can help people with doing things for people, not even inviting people for Shabbat meals, inviting people to come to shul with you, things like that. Just simple things that don't even cost money, but are involved in helping people do mitzvot. So again, that whole last paragraph should be read in mind of you doing it as a group of people and helping people in Israel, people in Klal Yisrael. The last two lines seem a little weird because they're totally not really connected. They talk about, in order to prolong your days and the days of your children upon the ground that Hashem has sworn to your ancestors to give them, like the days of the heaven on earth. So again, they're saying basically, again, back to the connection of the very beginning, where they say that if you do these mitzvot and you keep them, then the Hashem will eventually give us full control of the land of Eretz Israel. And that means that, as promised in the Torah, which is all the parts of Eretz Israel, and there won't be more debates on whether we should give this back or that part back, and whether people should live here or shouldn't live here, and there won't be any of these political issues anymore, and that when the Messiah comes, just like how they promised us and promised our ancestors, we will all return to live there, and then we will live, as it says, to prolong our days, meaning actually we will have longevity. So that means, again, the concept of the world to come and the concept of when the Messiah comes, which again is hard to fathom, but the fact that we will live forever and there won't be death and sadness and loss anymore. Okay, I'm going to finish the third paragraph, just even though I know I don't have a lot of time. I didn't do a lot on it because there's not that much actually in it that we haven't already really discussed. And we can always come back to it another time after the holidays, because as I said, I want to get started as soon as Rosh Chodesh is over on the holidays. So next week I'm going to do the brachot of the Shema, and then we'll have covered the whole Shema. So the last paragraph, which says, and Hashem said to Moses, saying, again comes out of, it's on the Koran, on the RCA page 94 we're now, and the Koran page 101. Again, it says, and Hashem said to Moses, saying, speak to the children and say to them that to make themselves tzitzit on the corners of their garments throughout their generations, and place the tzitzis on the thread of their tefilas. Again, this is all in plural, and telling us what to do to remember the commandments of Hashem. So basically, the focus of this whole section, Rav Mang says, is to again make an awareness, to be aware of Hashem all the time. So again, that's through tzitzit in this particular verse. It's talking about that, but obviously to us, as I said, to women, it can be through going to the mikveh. It can be through the mezuzah on your door. It can be through just your davening, praying, anything like that. Any awareness of Hashem. That's the first point of the paragraph. The second, again, as you carry on reading, is that you may see it and remember all the commandments of Hashem and perform them. So again, the acceptance of the mitzvot, that you actually accept the mitzvot again. And not explore after your heart, after your eyes, after which you stray. So again, the suppression of heresy, in the sense where you don't acknowledge that it's Hashem who does these things for you, but rather you start thinking with your eyes and your heart that it's you that are responsible for these things, or maybe you start putting these things more important than actual Hashem. So the suppression of heresy and believing that it's not Hashem. And then it carries on, and so that you remember and perform my commandments, again, so that you do not stray and remember and perform all my commandments. So again, that's to avoid the sinful thoughts and not sin. And then it says, because I am the Lord your God, I am Hashem who removed you from the land of Egypt. So we come to the fifth and the other critical important part of this prayer, that is reminding us the redemption of Egypt. So we get all those five main themes in this one prayer, and we consider all that. The most important thing, again, is holiness. It is the motivation of this prayer, that we reach a holiness that helps us to let our lives ascend to a higher level of existence. And Rashi says that the main reason for including this verse is because everyone has an obligation to remember Yetziat Mitzrayim, and also to claim our allegiance to Hashem. The words lo taturu, okay, which is again, don't follow after anything that your eyes see and your heart wants, because basically, again, if your eyes see something, then your heart might want it, and then finally your body will actually do the sin. The last and very last verse, and I'll end with this today, is Hashem Elokeichem Emet, which is the Hebrew, and translated in English, I am Hashem your God, it is true. The word "it is true" is just, in a Hebrew, is just emet, and it is actually added, it is again not part of the verse, just like the Baruch Shem Kavod is not part of the actual Torah, it's added at the end. And the reason is that because in Jeremiah, in his prophecy, he says that at the end, we will realize that when Hashem is saving us and bringing us back and bringing the Geula, we will see that Hashem is emet, and we will believe that he is one, and he is the only one, and that he's the true one. So basically, those are the summary of the three paragraphs. As I said, as much as possible, try to focus again on when we're talking individually, when we're talking as a group, and as soon as you can, try to understand the nuances that connect the Hebrew with the English. That's one of the reasons why when I post my notes, you'll be able to see the connections between the Hebrew meaning and the English meaning. And I hope that when you say the Shema, then you will say it more meaningfully, even if it is in English, because it is important, very important, that there's understanding. Just reading Hebrew because you can read the Hebrew, it's very clear, is not an option if you're not really understanding the words and can actually focus on each word. A consideration, though, that I have heard is to get one of those linear translations where they actually have, under the Hebrew word, they have the English translation. So again, you could maybe at the same time double up and read both, but that sometimes is hard when you're in shul and you're trying to keep up with the service. But if you are at home, then that's a possibility. That's a possibility also. My plan is when the shul opens to start donating some of those sidurim to the shul, and both also those and also the ones that have the transliteration, so that hopefully again makes you feel more comfortable, at least when you hear things being said in shul in Hebrew, and you can sort of follow it that way. Anyway, so hopefully everybody will have a good week. And next week, as I said, we'll focus on the rest of the brachot and the other parts leading up to the Shema. And now I guess questions.
I have a question. How do we get your notes? I'm just, I think I've asked you this before, and I don't know. Either I don't remember.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, Shona. Do you know my cell phone number? It's in the shul book. Do you have it, or you don't have it? I can give. Let me give you my cell phone number now. Okay, so it's 561-289-0026.
Okay.
And if you text me, I will send you, first of all, today's notes for sure. I'll send you whatever if you want them. But I'll also send you the link to the other notes so that you can find them all there. Plus, you can also get videos of this, what we've done today. Great. And all the other weeks. And you can watch them at your own time and your own leisure. It's all thanks to Andrea. She puts it up on the website. So thanks again, Andrea.
I should know how to do that, but somehow.
Okay. Have a great week, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. It was wonderful.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Very helpful.
Thank you, Cheryl. It's a
okay. Bye.
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 Okay. All right. Fantastic. Okay. All right. Who was that?